I'm Buck Potter, president of the Eagle Cap Sled Dog Race, and I would like to introduce this time Dr.JerryVanek, one of our trail veterinarians for the 200-mile race. Welcome, Dr. Vanek.
It's nice to be here. Thanks.
First question, what is the experience that you have in terms of other races, other places you've been?
I've been all over North America doing these kinds of races. I usually do a few a year. The Iditarod is probably the one that most people have heard of, and I was up there 4 times in the 1990s. That's the 1,000-mile race from Anchorage to Nome, probably the most well-known, popular race. But there's many other races I've done too. The Yukon Quest is another 1,000-mile race that goes from Fairbanks, Alaska to Whitehorse, Yukon Territory. And there's a number of races in Minnesota. The John Bear Grease is a 500-mile race, and there's the Can-Am Crown in Maine, which is about 250 miles. Race to the Sky in Montana is about 300 miles. And there's numerous other races, and now the Can-Am, which the Eagle Cap, which is my first time.
It's your first time, and what interested you to come and be involved with the Eagle Cap Sled Dog Race this year?
Word of mouth. 2 of my closest friends are veterinarians at this race. One is the head vet, Dr. Vern Starks, and another is Dr. Kathleen McGill from Ohio. Dr. Starks is from near the Seattle, Washington area, and I've known them for years through doing these other races, and they both spoke so highly of this race and the area and its potential, both the race's potential and the area's potential and its beauty, that I had to come. And so last August I came here in the summer just to see what the place was like green, and was very impressed with the Wallowa and Joseph Enterprise LeGrand area, and I liked it very much and was anxious to get back in the winter. So I signed on for the race this year and came back, and I've really been impressed. Everything they said came true. It's just a beautiful, beautiful area, beautiful setting for a race, great hospitality, lots of really nice people. And I do see the potential for this race going very far because of the dedication of the volunteers and the leadership, and the beauty of the area is really appealing. So I'm glad I came.
I kind of agree with you because, of course, I live here. But also, we know you vet races like this, but also what do you do outside of vetting races like this?
Well, I'm also a veterinarian, and I work exclusively with sled dogs anymore. So in the fall, I'm going through kennels and vaccinating dogs for rabies and distemper, and I also have a consulting business in infectious diseases. That's my background in veterinary medicine, is public health and the infectious diseases like viruses and bacteria. I'm also on the adjunct faculty at Bemidji State University, where I teach parasitology and cell biology, and always looking for a job teaching biology in a place like, say, LeGrand.
Oh.
Yeah, no, it's I've heard you've got a great university here too. So so I do the teaching, and I'm also certified in the wilderness life support. So I do some teaching. I'm an EMT as well as a veterinarian, so I do some teaching in wilderness first aid, wilderness medicine. I also teach firemen through a program called BART, which is Basic Animal Rescue Training, where we teach firemen how to rescue animals in disasters, floods, hurricanes, tornadoes, major house fires and things. So I stay fairly busy as a teacher at a lot of different levels in sled dogs and university settings, and then in emergency medicine settings as well.
Well, when it comes to the university setting, I know for a fact that I have a couple of gen eds that are science, biology type. It wouldn't be bad to have you as a teacher, I'm sure. The next question I have for you is what, in terms of, is done at a race in terms of for the veterinarians?
Well, we're primarily here just to ensure the dogs remain healthy. We're not the dog police or anything like that. It's not necessary. These dogs are extremely well cared for by their mushers, because if they're not, the mushers don't get to go where they want to go. When we come, we do physical exams on every dog prior to the race. We do physical exams on every dog in the middle of the race. And in longer races where they're, say the Iditarod, where there are 27 checkpoints, they get a physical exam at every checkpoint. So these dogs are getting physical exams somewhere between 2 and 27 times in the race, depending on its duration. And when you realize that most pets hardly ever see a vet at all, or if they do, they get an annual vaccination once a year, to realize that these dogs race every 2 or 3 weeks with time off for training all winter long. Some of these dogs are getting 40 or 50 physical exams in a year, which is pretty astounding. So we do that and ensure that the dogs are ready to race. And then anytime a musher needs help, we're there. If a dog should happen to pick up an infectious disease and get sick, we're there to treat the animal. They're dropped from the race into the care of the veterinarians. The musher goes on down the trail, and we keep the dogs with us to treat them for infectious diseases. If dogs get injured occasionally, as any athlete will, whether it's a human being or a racing greyhound or a racing pigeon or a horse or a long-distance marathon runner, bicyclist, swimmer, everybody occasionally gets injured. Football players, basketball players, these dogs as well will turn an ankle, might strain their muscle, get a sore back, and we're there to diagnose the exact problem and then treat it correctly. And again, the dogs are dropped from the race, left behind in our care. The musher goes on down the trail, and we treat the dogs with whatever injury they may have come down with. So those are the two major things: doing physical exams to make sure the dogs are in good physical condition throughout the entire race, and then when a dog does have an injury or an illness, we're there to treat it aggressively when it happens.
It sounds like obviously these are athletes just as much as human beings, so you got to take care of them just as much as any human being on a football team or anything else, right? Absolutely,
that's what they are. They're athletes, and so they have liniments for their feet. They wear sweats on their carpi or their ankles, very similar to a ballet dancer who wears leggings on her ankles and knees, or racehorses that have wraps on their fetlocks. So we do that, and the mushers themselves, of course, are training the animals just as athletes. They're on the highest plane of nutrition that you can buy. Many of them are sponsored by dog food companies with levels of nutrition that the pet owner can't buy, because they're scientifically formulated diets just for racing. And then from these diets trickles down the regular dog food. It's the same thing with our medical care, actually, on these dogs. Just as NASA trickles down a lot of technology in terms of medicine, computers, and other scientific things from the space industry to our everyday life, whether it's a microphone or a microwave oven, we have the same things with dogs here. And a lot of people don't realize when they go to the pet food store that a lot of the foods they're feeding their pets were used first on racing sled dogs, where we needed the higher plane of nutrition. And a lot of the medical techniques that veterinarians might use on hunting dogs, for instance, are techniques that were developed on these race trails here for these dogs. So they're very much athletes, and we learn a tremendous amount from these dogs that we then apply to the average pet.
Okay, so it's a little more than just normal take care and everything like that. It's take care of the dogs as athletes as well. The next question I have is in terms of this race, leading up to this race, what's different about this race versus, say, other races out there?
Not all races are as beautiful or as picturesque, or the people as hospitable as here, and I truly mean that. But in addition, there are many kinds of sled dog races, and this is a middle distance race with 8 dog teams running 100 miles and the 12 dog teams running 200 miles. We have 1 major checkpoint and 2 minor checkpoints for the 200-mile race, and that would compare to the Iditarod, where you have a dog team running 1,100 miles and 27 checkpoints, about 35 veterinarians. Here we have 5 veterinarians because it's smaller. At the other extreme, there are small sprint races where dogs are only running anywhere from 4 to 6 to 12 miles, and the race only takes an hour or two, and there would be just 1 veterinarian on duty. So just in terms of the length of the race, we're midway between the short 2, 4, 6 mile sprint races and the long 1,000-mile endurance races like the Quest and the Iditarod.